You're listening to Uncoupled and Unfiltered, the show for people smart enough to get out of the wrong relationship and bold enough to do it without losing their damn minds. Hosted by Ksenia Mensch, a divorce strategist and straight-talking badass, this podcast is your no-fluff, no-shame, take-control guide to surviving litigated divorce with clarity, guts, and zero regrets. Let's get into it. Here's Ksenia.
You're listening to Uncoupled and Unfiltered, the podcast where we get honest about love, loss, and life after separation. I'm your host, Ksenia Mensch, and today we're talking about one of the toughest parts of divorce, heartbreak, the pull of rebound relationships, and how to truly move forward without repeating old patterns. I'm joined today by Dr. Lisa Marie Bobby, a licensed psychologist, marriage and family therapist, board certified life coach, and founder of Growing Self Counseling and Coaching. Dr. Bobby has spent over 2 decades helping people heal from heartbreak, rebuild their self worth, and create healthier relationships after loss and separations. And she's also the author of Exaholics, Breaking Your Addiction to a Next Love, offering research backed insights into why letting go is often harder than we think. So, in this episode, we'll explore why rebound relationships feel so tempting after divorce, how heartbreak actually affects us emotionally and biologically, and what it takes to move beyond the pain into lasting joy and connection. But before we jump in, please don't forget to click, like, and subscribe to help this podcast grow. It also ensures you won't miss another episode that dives into topics a lot of people think but don't talk about. So, let's dive in. Welcome to this show, Dr. Lisa. I'm so excited about this conversation.
I'm excited too. And first of all, just thank you so much for your mission. I mean, even the fact that you're here doing this and talking about these things is so admirable because as we were chatting about before we started recording this, there's so much about this entire experience that just surprises people. They can feel very alone. And the fact that you're here providing this information and giving people's experience a voice is just, it's really important. So thank you.
Absolutely. And I also think it's important for people to know this is not a unique journey. It's just we didn't know how to navigate it. I always call it like a treasure map. We people who went through that, we know where the treasure is. You are the one searching it, we're the X, you know? So let us help you know the next steps and the direction you need to take. And I am very excited about the topic today because I certainly was surprised. I know a lot of people were surprised, and a lot of women have these questions. Rebound relationships, I think they're inevitable, but are they?
I think that there are a couple of different answers to this. And I think that, a couple of different things. People who are going through a divorce have been experiencing a lot of not even just pain, but anger, disappointment, heartbreak for a long time. And they want to feel happy again. They want to feel good again. And honestly, most people in a really healthy and legitimate way want to be in a relationship again. And so, that is great. And we don't have to characterize all relationships that happen after you get divorced or separated as rebound
Hmm.
relationships, which I think can have negative connotations.
Yes,
I
it
think
does.
what makes a rebound relationship meet that criteria, and also what makes it problematic, is the degree to which someone has I spent time learning, growing, examining themselves, making some positive changes before entering
Hmm.
into a new relationship. And you know what? Some people have done so much work on themselves that, their partner moves out, and 4 days later, they are legitimately ready to connect with a new person because
Hmm.
they've done a lot of that work. Oh yeah, over a long, we could talk more about that too. And
Yes.
and then there are other people who 4 years later still haven't done the things. And so the next relationship they get into can be a rebound
Hmm.
relationship, even though it happens a long time afterward. And I'm happy to unpack this? Because
Yes.
I could just see from your face, you're like, wait, there's more. So, I mean, yeah,
So
that's why
for
it's
me,
tough.
I always thought rebound is
Hmm.
the pretty much, again, my criteria is you jump into a relationship pretty much straight out of separation, not even divorce. So you're still technically married, separated. You jump into it. I am the big thing about rebounds, you're unhealed. So you are just repeating same patterns, but it's almost like you're bursting with emotions that you've accumulated. You've been unhappy, you have love to give, and then somebody comes
Hmm.
along, or maybe somebody you had an eye on before it, now you have an opportunity, and you jump into that and just pouring everything that accumulated in you into that person. But again, the
Hmm.
two biggest thing, it's for me, it's almost pretty much the immediate relationship after separation and being unhealed. Is that accurate, or is more to it? Is that what rebound is?
I I think that that's true. I think that you're absolutely right, and I agree with what you're saying. So sometimes there can be an immediacy,
Mm-hmm.
definitely the unhealed piece, but you know, or I think that there is more to the story is that many people coming out of a marriage, particularly women who are the ones initiating the
Yes.
relationship ending, they have been on an off ramp, sometimes for many years.
Yes.
And by the time the action is being taken, they're actually moving out of the house or filing the paperwork or doing the things.
Mm-hmm.
They are very much over it because they have really been moving in this direction for many
Mm-hmm.
years. Their partner hasn't always known it. And there can certainly be things like guilt and, logistical things and stress and anxiety about
Mm-hmm.
money. But in terms of their emotions, like of attachment to their ex, they're good, truly. So sometimes healing it, it can take many forms. I think one thing about a rebound relationship is that it's not just like moving towards something positive. It's trying to get away from something negative. And I think that there can be an unconsciousness about it. So
Mm-hmm.
even if somebody is healed in the sense that they really don't have a lot of pain related to their ex, they can still be in this place where they are unexamined, I think
Mm-hmm.
maybe is the right word for it. So, for example, whenever I am working with people through heartbreak or divorce, I think it's very, very valuable, even if somebody thinks that they don't have anything to talk about or think about or do because they're not really in a lot of pain around the relationship ending. They feel quite resolved. The question is always, do you know why this relationship ended? And are you clear about, even though this is like hard to think about, are
Mm-hmm.
you clear about how you co-created whatever just happened with your partner? Because if somebody can't answer those questions, it's very likely they will drag the same things into whatever partnership they get into
Mm-hmm.
again. And so that's why when I think of a rebound relationship, it can actually even be many years in the future. It's
Yes.
because of the reasons why somebody is doing it and their state of not just healing, but also growth on the other side
Mm-hmm.
of the relationship ending. So, yeah.
Now it makes sense because I agree with you. A lot of women, we have a emotional switch. We give
Mm,
a lot of chances, so it does take sometimes few years for us even to
yes.
understand that we're slowly disconnecting, like we are on off ramp at this point.
Hmm.
And then there is a click, and we're already, even during the 5 years, again, we don't fully acknowledge it to ourselves, but we grieve the relationship, we fought for it, and when we're done, we're done. That's when
Done.
men, usually husbands, try to reconcile, and you're like, there is nothing left in me. It's too late.
Hmm.
um but then, if you are not healing, so you just accept, okay, you grieve your husband, And I agree, if you're not growing, you can end up in a similar situation
Yeah.
that before, and even 5, 10 years later, like
Mm.
understanding and growing are two different things. They need to be
Mhm.
worked together, but if you're not growing, just you understanding what happened doesn't help you in future relationships, right?
Yes, I think that's true. And so that's where I always caution people to slow down a little bit before getting in a new
Mm-hmm.
relationship. Now, another thing that's really interesting about the typically the next relationship right out of the can, is that frequently it can feel much more intense than the relationship that you had with your
Mm-hmm.
ex. And people can experience themselves as being more connected, more attached, more, what's the word? Like almost excited. And when that new relationship doesn't work out for whatever reasons, people will typically feel much more heartbroken about
Yes.
that than they did about their divorce, their marriage ending.
So why is that relationship feeling so much more heightened in every aspect of the relationship?
I think that's a good question. And I think that there can be many reasons for it. I think one is that people, and I don't want to overgeneralize here. I always feel cautious about
Mm-hmm.
genderizing experiences because I've talked to plenty of people and, the roles have been reversed. There's also
Yes.
same-sex relationships. So, like, just that is my caveat. But typically, when people have been divorce is very rarely an event, right? It's not an explosion. It's like a tunnel, and it's
Mm-hmm.
usually a dark, long, cold, disappointing, resentment-filled tunnel that is generally experienced as joyless, right? And so I think that when people have gone through that and frequently have many hopes for what it is going to be like when they are finally free of the relationship, and they might be excited about feeling sexual again or feeling pretty
Mm-hmm.
or having fun, like kind of reigniting these parts of themselves, they can invest a lot of hope into that next relationship that comes along.
Mm-hmm.
And they have also been in a relationship that, for all its faults, was a um, committed partnership, at least on the surface, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so people are transferring all this attachment to a new person. They have a lot of emotions invested in it. They have also been going through like this deep freeze. And so, in the early stages of romantic love and limerence and feeling excited and feeling attracted, and oftentimes fueled by sexual chemistry, it
Yes.
can, it can, impact them much more profoundly than a relationship that felt kind of dead. And that is the part that will surprise them.
Mm-hmm.
So when, or because typically, I mean, and I don't want to overgeneralize, some of them do work out, but what is more normal is that they don't. It is just crushing because there's this emotional intensity that goes along with the new relationship that is really surprising for people.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes
I
sense. Yeah.
absolutely, because I know that when again, I
Hmm.
think majority of people, when we just get out of relationship, we're not the deep thinkers when it comes to emotional awareness. So
Yeah, you just want to have a good time.
yeah,
Hmm.
we just go, we just dive in and see what happens. But the like falling out of it is devastating. Like the heartbreak, and I know my heartbreak. I was like, what? It took me a couple of years to recover. It truly
From a rebound or from the
from re,
marriage?
from rebound marriage. When I
Oh,
left,
okay.
I
So
was
we're speaking
already
to your
done.
experience. Oh, I didn't even know that about
Oh
you
no,
and your story. Thank you for sharing.
yeah,
Hmm.
I'm just, I know that a lot of women that I spoke to, the same experience. When they
Yeah.
left marriage, they were fine. And I was told multiple times, like I left, I was so down, I was disconnected. I knew it was time to go. And for me,
Hmm.
the biggest sign for me was when I told my then husband, you can be with any woman you want, you just cannot touch me. I knew that was the end because out of the blue, I do not care about
Yeah,
women he's with. And I
right.
think for a lot of women, it's a telltale sign. Um, but then the rebound, that was devastating. I do not know
Yes.
how many nights I cried. It truly took me 2 years to recover. When
Hmm.
I disconnected from all of this, I disconnected from the person. And I only 2 years later, I was able to say, I let go.
Yeah.
But I was surprised by the intensity
Hmm.
and how deep it got into my heart. And again, I
Hmm.
know I'm not an exception. I am a majority of what
Hmm.
people experience
Yeah.
with those type of relationships.
Right. Right. Yeah. So what I'm saying sounds very familiar to you. And I
Hmm.
mean, and I don't know how intimate we would be at a public podcast. You're certainly welcome to ask me questions too. But I would be curious if we could talk more about it, just because I think that many of your listeners can relate.
Hmm.
Um, or maybe we could speak generally, but many times there is a lot of chemistry in these relationships. There's excitement, and some of it can certainly be like emotional or intellectual chemistry. A lot of it is also sexual, and it's like because it's been a while, you know?
It's highly, I think, and that's just my
Yeah.
opinion. I think it's mostly driven by sexual attraction.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly driven by sexual experiences because, like you said, out of the blue, like you've been married for years and years and years, and again, it's the same partner. You just kind of know the routine. When you're out of it, all of a sudden, you're feeling more comfortable to experiment. You're more bold because you're like, you mentioned it before, you go into extreme. You go, I do not want my ex. It's opposite.
Right.
And with that opposite, you feel free and you feel you can do things you could never do with the ex. And I think for women, it biologically even connects us more. I always talk about how women and casual sex, I do not know if we are wired to
I don't
be,
think so.
we'll just do casual. We can convince ourselves all day long. We can be really good at that.
Mm,
But deep down, every time we have casual sex, we feel worse about ourselves because we know we're starting to attach to the intimate partner,
mhm.
buddy, let's call him that way. And there's nothing there. It's like free lunch. We're giving there like, okay, hot dog, sounds good. Sure. I don't have to pay
Right.
for it, you know?
Right. Right. Yes, I agree. There's a very influential researcher in this space, Dr. Helen Fisher, and unfortunately, I think that she passed away a year or two ago. But her work was just really profound. She did a lot of exploration, actually brain image scanning of people who were in these kinds of early stage
Mm-hmm.
romantic limerence type spaces. And it really is a unique experience and what it does to us. And
Mm-hmm.
it is very different than how we are. Thinking, feeling, behaving, the connection that we experience with a more established partner when there is water under the bridge, especially, right? And there's been hurt and there's been anger, all the things.
Mm-hmm.
But she had a saying that I will always remember, which speaks to your point, which is that there is no such thing as casual sex, that our sexuality is this bonding mechanism, and
Mm-hmm.
we can tell ourselves whatever. And I think that there are stories in the culture now, especially amongst younger people,
Mm-hmm.
that it can be separate somehow, but it is biologically hardwired in us. And it's a very normal experience to have. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, to validate yours, but also hopefully for some people listening too.
I do think it's also important for women, and I also want
Hmm.
to focus on that. It comes down to self-worth as
Mm.
well. I remember when, again, my rebounds, and I did have some situationships because I was not ready for a relationship, but I felt the need. But none of this is healthy, what I found for myself. And what I also found, again, speaking of my experience, I had such a low self-worth. That's why I was fine with that. And I think a lot of women getting out of divorces, trying to find themselves, trying to rediscover who they are, it's as if they're trying to prove, no, 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 I'm still wanted, and
Mm,
I'll give you anything you want just so I feel wanted.
mm.
But that's not the wanted that they want to feel. It's a different wanted, unless they don't like chosen two different things.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a good
how do
point. Mm,
how can women focus or recognize that they have a low self-worth? A lot of women just they can say, "Oh my gosh, I look incredible, I'm amazing," but I look at their dating patterns and I'm like,
mm.
hmm,
Yeah.
I'll call you out on that. You're not having a high self-esteem because I see who you're with. Your people are reflection of how you view yourself.
Mm,
So how can women on their own identify that their self-worth needs a little work?
yeah. Well, I mean, I think that there are a couple of different ways of looking at this. And so this is a big topic, by the way. I'll
Mm-hmm.
just warn you. And honestly, I speak about this pretty regularly on my podcast. So, Love, Happiness, and Success.
Okay.
One facet of this is definitely related to self-worth. Um, but I think sometimes people get confused about what self-worth really is.
And
Is
what
that
is
it's,
it?
yeah, it's not a feeling. It's really related to trust in your own competence, your
Hmm.
own ideas. It is not a feeling. Um, to give people visibility into when there are things to manage, it's when they tend to be very externally focused, that they kind of outsource the way that they feel to other people.
Hmm.
So if other people think well of them or are attracted to them or admire them, then the person receiving that is like, okay, I'm okay. It's like having your
Mm-hmm.
cup filled up from outside of yourself,
Yes.
as opposed to being able to say, I'm okay, actually. I trust myself. I can figure this out. Um, I can be anxious and soothe myself as opposed to having
Mm-hmm.
to get somebody else like, right? So it's that external validation thing that it's really more about. But I think when it comes to dating patterns, we, certainly can interpret it as low self-worth, like I need you to be excited about me in order
Mm-hmm.
for me to get this like reflected sense of esteem or whatever. But I think the other thing that people don't talk a lot about is that it's there is a desire for, it's like wanting to eat chocolate cake. It's like something that feels good and chasing the dragon a little bit because
Mm-hmm.
people often confuse feelings of chemistry or attraction or excitement or even anxiety. Um, that's how we experience chemistry. It's how we experience butterflies. And I think that there's
Yes.
a natural tendency to look for that, to want that. And what a lot of people don't realize is that that's actually more of a red flag in relationships than a sign that a partner is going to be a good match for you. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I typically see is people over indexing that experience of chemistry over character, and
Mm-hmm.
then it doesn't end well, if that makes sense. So
Oh,
sometimes it's about self-worth, but I mean, honestly, yeah and no, because if it really was about self-worth, people would make different choices. They would be with somebody who I think is more actively filling their cup and meeting those needs. What happens is that people get this almost like almost like a craving. It almost feels like a high, like a desire.
Yes.
And
Like a
typically,
drug. You're,
right, right. So it is toxic entanglements that tend to be the most addictive. Love is an addictive substance. And
mm-mm,
so it's like if you connect with somebody who's charismatic, sexual, kind of dark, mysterious, dashing, makes you feel a certain way,
mm-hmm,
there is a craving for that. And that sort of makes you chase and get more like hyper fixated on someone. And I think there is an addictive process that can be very intoxicating that is
mm-hmm.
much more powerful than the self-worth idea. Although it's true for some people, but I'll tell you, people who have great self-esteem can still do that.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, do you think people ever, so I agree with you. I
Mhm.
heard about it and I recognize it within myself right now that or maybe like my nervous system come down when there are butterflies or there is like something I cannot get a specific person out of my head. That's not
Mhm.
a good thing. It means something is it's almost like an unhealthy pattern is about to unravel, and maybe something familiar to unravel, but it's not going to be a good relationship because the dynamic already shifted. I am in a hunter mode
Mhm.
versus being hunted.
Yeah.
I know it sounds,
Oh, no, no, no. Yeah, totally. Well, and I mean, I think it is possible to have a healthy, positive relationship come out of that because we are built to bond with other humans.
hmm
Like nature designed us to become emotionally welded to other people.
hmm
And that happens in very predictable stages. And the very first is that attraction, lust, limerence, and then it
hmm
kind of, turns into a romantic relationship, that craving, like want to be with somebody all the time, thinking about them, like having imaginary conversations in your head with them. Like that happens in healthy relationships as well.
Yes.
That's the on ramp, right?
hmm
And um, I think what people don't realize is that um, some of the most superficially attractive people that can stimulate those kinds of feelings in others
hmm
can have narcissistic qualities, um, psychopathic qualities, antisocial qualities, and that is true for men and for women. Like,
Yes.
the sexy, hot, uh, bonkers chick, right? Like that is
hmm
a stereotype, but it inflames these feelings in people much more easily. So it's not that that is happening necessarily. It's just having a lot of awareness around almost like separating, like I'm having this experience, but who is this person really? And just because I feel this way doesn't necessarily mean that I
hmm
should act on it. But it's hard because when these things take over, you can
Yes.
really like lose control of yourself a little bit and sometimes a lot.
I mean, it
Yeah.
happens, right? That's
Hmm.
how sometimes people end up in relationships that they should
Oh,
have never
yeah.
been in.
Hmm.
And then they're, like you mentioned, if those attractive people,
Hmm.
they can be a mix of all those things. You know, the
Hmm.
NPD can be mixed with sociopath,
Yeah.
psychopath. They just become more um, dangerous, I would say, more catchy. They're almost like it's a web, and they catch you, right? Um, it's very difficult to get out of those
Mm.
relationships.
Yeah.
Um, and I
There's
think a
an
lot of
addictive quality.
yes, addictive, and there is a cycle, right? There is a niceness, and there is always like the memory of how it was at the beginning. It's the NPD and other things are just it's a whole another big conversation that needs to be had actually for women who are in it to recognize the patterns and maybe get out before things get worse because they always do get worse. They don't get better.
Mm.
Um, and it's if you recognize it earlier or from the beginning, you may save yourself so much heartbreak
Yes.
and just sanity too.
Right.
Um, how do you heal from? Is there an effective way to heal your heartbreak? How do you soothe yourself, calm yourself down when you are just unraveling in this emotional pain?
Mm. Um, it is a process. And so what I work with people around, and honestly, I've actually stopped doing one-on-one sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, I now use an intensive model because I think it holds the boundaries better for people going through this. Um, it unfolds in stages, and there are different things that people really need to do in every single one of these stages. But
Mm-hmm.
the very first, I think, is what you're talking about, this intense withdrawal stage where you're obsessing, it's all you can think about, you're craving
Yes.
contact, even though you know intellectually it is not a good idea. People can lose control of themselves. And, that is when people can and do um, maintain contact. For example, maintaining like a sexual situationship with somebody that they know,
Mm-hmm.
like, I shouldn't be doing this, but they get a text and they're like, okay, because it's that like intense craving. And that does make people feel bad about themselves over time. So I
Maybe they
think
hope that they will change their mind.
that's always the story,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's so complex, right? Because love is such a positive thing, right? And we want that and we deserve it. And everybody is a mixed bag. Even
Mm-hmm.
if somebody has narcissistic qualities or is not a good partner, that's not all they are, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
multidimensional. And
Yes.
so I think that there's also hope that this person can be who and what I want them to be. And I think what can be a very powerful narrative that needs to be managed is if I could only be better or a certain way or pleasing to them, then they would love me and this would be a good relationship. And that also doesn't have anything to do with self-esteem
Mm-hmm.
necessarily. It also goes into this biological hardwiredness that when you are attached to anyone and there is a
Mm-hmm.
rejection response, we're actually
Yes.
evolutionarily predisposed to humble ourselves and make it our fault in order to maintain the connection.
Huh.
Yeah. So again, a perfectly secure person whose parents never got divorced, like will still have that same response. Yeah. So, but to your question, how do you manage that? I think first of all is recognizing it. And this is always the very first place I start with people who I work with going through this process is understanding that you are biologically and evolutionarily hardwired to attach to people and also to have very predictable responses that
Mm.
make you want to maintain that connection, whether or not it is good for you. And so
Mm-hmm.
step one is just understanding and being able to observe it. So the analogy that I always use with people is, in the event that someone has developed an attachment to an addictive substance like cocaine or opiates, um, we know it is not a good idea to smoke crystal meth or like whatever the thing is, right? Like objectively, bad idea. And people in this space really want to. They like the way it makes them feel. There's this
Mm-hmm.
belief that goes along with it. Like, well, this will be the last time. It's Friday night. It's my birthday. Like, whatever the thing is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there is a biological basis for that that makes your brain think all kinds of things to rationalize the behavior.
Yes.
And the same process happens in a love context, but it is, well, maybe this time, or if I could only XYZ, then I will
Mm-hmm.
get love for them. And people need support, I think, in recognizing that they can have these thoughts and feelings and impulses, and it doesn't mean they should act on them. Does that make sense? I know
Yes,
that
it
it's kind
does.
of confusing.
It it's this probably same type of chemical reaction we're getting in our body
Mhm.
as when it comes to addictions, right? When, like you said,
Precisely.
people justify, find reasons why it's okay to do it. So, number
Yes.
one, I don't feel like a fool. I don't have to judge myself. And the same goes there. Or maybe he was thinking about me. Or maybe like if, like you said, if I do this, it's I'm guessing the same chemical imbalance, if you will, happening with
Yeah.
within.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And very much so. I mean, what I find very interesting and what when I first learned about it, I was like, whoa, is that, we are hardwired to build attachment bonds to other people. And we have all kinds of, I mean, hormones, structures in our brain, different pathways in our bodies. Like we are designed for it. And when people get addicted, AKA attached to
Hmm.
substances, those substances are actually artificially stimulating the same systems that nature designed to help us bond to other people.
Ah, so now you
It's the
bonded just
same.
with to a substance.
Right, exactly,
Hmm.
precisely. So it's the same thing. It's confusing though to people when it happens because it's difficult to recognize it for what it
Yes.
is. Yeah.
I think you know what I think a lot of people, most people actually, we need to accept, regardless of what the belief system right now is,
Hmm.
there is a specific biological wiring
Yeah.
within us based on our gender, based on our upbringing as well, and based on just biology, like what's happening in the
Yeah.
body. Once we accept that, we can understand much better and be much um, more intentional
Hmm.
with the relationships,
Yeah.
with friendships, and just understanding why we do crap. Like, it's just
Yes.
but we
Yeah.
think, one of my favorite movies, it's really silly. I think it's called He's Not That Into You, something like along those lines. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't. I think I've
So,
heard of it though.
so
Hmm.
it's about dating. And
Hmm.
one girl, she was overthinking, well, what if he just said this? What if he lost his phone? He's not calling me. What if he's this? And the guy's like, listen, if he wanted to call you, he would. He
Hmm.
is not into you. You are not an exception. You are a rule. And I think if we as humans accept, listen, we are a rule to biology. This is what we are. Life's going to get much easier.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, my profession is partially to blame for this, honestly. So, I mean, I'm a psychologist, I'm a marriage and family therapist, could do therapy all day long, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I think that one thing that has influenced my perspective is that prior to becoming to a therapist, my first degree was in biology. And so I think that one thing that therapists can do is perpetuate stories about why, right? Like, well, it's because your parents XYZ, you had a critical father, it's like low self-esteem, like all of these psychological interpretations. And sometimes it's certainly true, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can have patterns due to our life experiences, but I think that there's a noticeable lack of um, acknowledgement or regard for the very powerful influences that our biology has on all kinds of things. And so part
Yes.
of it can be in relationships, but I mean, even major mental health. There's more and more research coming out these days that um, significant psychiatric issues, major depression, anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, to a significant degree can be explained by the presence of metabolic disorders. And
Hmm.
if you change the way that your body is functioning and that your brain is functioning, it changes the way you think, feel, and behave. And so, like going into this research, honestly, like as a therapist, it made me almost feel guilty in a way because here I am trying to like connect dots and peel the onion and like if we could just get
Mm-hmm.
insight and how's this cathartic thing and sometimes that's helpful, sometimes it doesn't have anything to do with anything. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
just being able to get a broader perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How long do you think on biological level
Hmm.
does it take on average to heal the heartache? Biological. Again, I understand
Yeah.
everybody's different, but biologically, the
Yeah.
capability of the body, the heart.
I would love to give you the timeline answer that you're looking for. And so, in my heartbreak recovery intensive process, I have, I mean, gosh, in this last group of people, I have a woman, I think it's been 12 years, many, many, many years. And for other people, um, it can be much shorter. The amount of time has no bearing at all.
No, it
It
doesn't.
it depends on what people do very intentionally to release their attachment and
Mhm.
then do specific things to help themselves move down the line. People can get stuck for decades.
So, what are they doing that keeps them stuck? Is it still keeping in touch? Is it replaying conversations? Is it still romanticizing the memories they shared? What keeps them stuck for this
Yeah.
long?
Right. Great question. And all of the things that you mentioned can absolutely be part of the architecture of maintaining an attachment.
Hmm.
And we have to remember that the way adults form and then maintain attachments is very much in our mind. And so the part of our brains that establishes attachment bonds with other humans, it is nonverbal. It is a
Hmm.
almost mammalian layer. So our brains are built in layers, right? And it's only
Yes.
the topmost, newest layer that is capable of thought, consciousness, planning, envisioning. But when we become lost in thoughts and memories and replaying situations and imagining scenarios, and that person is alive in our minds, the part
Yes.
of our brain that creates attachment bonds, it can't
Hmm.
tell the difference between something that is happening versus something that isn't, and it remains. And that's
Mm.
true if it's positive scenarios or if it is angry, dark, hurtful
Yes.
scenarios, both of which are true. And sometimes if people have unresolved dark emotions, anger, hurt, fear, it's like your brain just keeps going back there over and over again. Why? Like unexplained situations, like what,
Hmm.
and they don't have a good answer, keep trying to go back and close the loops. People can do that for many, many years.
I think you just mentioned it. The closure
Yeah.
is one of the things that I found people get stuck.
Hmm.
And it's almost a skill you have to learn to rewire how closure is given. It's not the final conversation. It's
Yeah.
not, oh, but you have to say I'm sorry. No, it's truly closure for you, meaning
Hmm.
whatever the last action was, whatever the last exchange was, how that made you feel is the closure on its own. So
Yeah.
if that ended and like for instance you have resentment or you have anger because you
Hmm.
thought it was unfair, but that is closure. And I think a lot of people don't understand and they keep ruminating and they're hoping to reconnect just to have that one last conversation or just
Yeah.
so they can be heard. I need to say something.
Mm.
And what I started telling my clients, and it started working for me. That's why how I know it's effective. I just take a piece of paper and I jot it all down
Mm.
as if I'm planning to send it, but I never do. And recently I came across one letter I wrote maybe like 4 years ago, and I was reading
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh my gosh, you poor soul. I can feel all the pain that it was me, but she went through 4 years ago.
Mm.
But now, and I'm like, you're fine. You see, you
Hmm.
survived everything. Like
Yeah.
it passed,
Yeah.
and but it can be something that people can utilize as a tool. Just jot it down
Absolutely.
instead of seeking out somebody. Or if you're in love with somebody but they're not reciprocating, the same, write it all down and just let it be, let it sit
Mm.
somewhere on the computer and to just let it go.
Hmm.
I think
Yeah.
it's very underrated tool, and I'm not talking journaling, just like intentional
Oh, yes.
release.
Yes. You're absolutely that was related to the rebound partner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Or
yes, that one was.
mhm.
Yes. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Well,
It was a long ladder.
I
Trust
hear
me.
you. But I think it actually goes back to that same idea. You did an experiential enactment where you knew, right, that you're writing a letter. You are writing down the things that you would say to this person. It's the same type of intervention that a therapist like me might use when
Hmm.
we get somebody to talk to their dad, sitting in the chair across
Yes.
from them with talking to the therapy pillow. And it is that you are helping your brain have an experience that changes something.
Hmm.
So consciously, that's not actually my dad. That's the therapy pillow. But in that deep layer of your brain, the one that doesn't know the difference between what's happening and what you're
Mm.
thinking about, it can rearrange the furniture. And it sounds
Hmm.
like that's what you did. It gave you the experience of having said the things,
Yes.
even though you didn't. Yeah,
Yes, but it was very
powerful.
cathartic and it was
Hmm.
very powerful at understanding first the emotions I held inside, and I
Yeah.
finally allowed it to come out,
Hmm.
knowing I'm not going to be judged. I think a
Yeah.
lot of times we also withhold and we repress, whether it's anger,
Oh.
whether it's resentment, because we don't want to be judged.
Hmm.
Um, and here, nobody's judging you. Just put it on a piece of paper, reenact like you said, and put it to rest.
Yeah.
And again, I was surprised when I saw it. I pulled it on my computer. I'm like, what's that? And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that one. I remember writing it.
Yeah. Isn't that
Uh,
wonderful though? I mean, that you were able to have the experience of how far you've come. That must have felt like such a victory for you. And maybe is a nice place to land because I think that when people are going through that experience, they feel like they're going insane, right? And it's like, how
yes.
am I ever going to feel better? How am I ever going to turn this off? Like they can feel very helpless.
Hmm.
And just for you to say that, you know, it's almost like that is not true for me at
It's
all
funny.
anymore.
It now
Yeah.
it's funny. Uh,
Mm.
but it's so important for people who are going through this to
Yeah.
find those markers when they can see the progress, because I am seeing like, even how it happens, like the axes come back when you're fully over. But what I realized also, like a huge marker, when the axes come back and ask me like for another chance, I'm like, no, I'm not trying to destroy your ego. I'm not trying to hurt you. I
Right.
am not interested. I do not know what I saw then, but where I'm at right now, there is nothing that you can offer me that would uh, enhance my life. Let's
Yeah.
put it that way.
Great.
And that's a huge sign of growth,
Hmm.
because you see that you are not at in the same place at all. You just kind of keep moving forward and you see your standards, your group change, your group of friends change. I think people, and women especially, recognize it and pat yourself on the shoulder
Hmm.
of doing a great job. Because being
Yeah.
in this, it is like a dark, dark, long tunnel.
Yeah.
And it gets tiring to walk and walk. And I always joke, when I see the light, I'm like, oh, finally, the light in the at the end of the tunnel. Nope, another incoming train. And
Well,
it's
that is that rebound experience, whether it happens right after or years down the road, because the
mhm,
marriage ending was the long dark tunnel, and then you're like,
yes.
finally, and then you get run over by a train. And that
Well,
is, I think, what makes it hard.
yes, because you
Yeah.
put so much, like you said, you put so much hope.
Hmm.
Um, and you don't realize that it's not it. You're not in the place to potentially have that depth of a relationship. But this
Yeah.
is what I want to bring attention to. A lot of
Mhm.
times I know men get attracted to women based on looks. Get
Mm.
it? That's how they're wired. This is their wiring, right? They all imagine what we look like naked before they build a connection with us.
Mm.
We as women, I think we are driven more. I mean, looks, yes. Eye candy is always nice. Who doesn't like that? But let me ask you this.
Sure.
When we see a person, a man, and let's say like, oh, he's okay, he's looking fine. Can this develop into stronger connection, bond, and I wouldn't say chemistry, desire, intimate
Hmm.
desire with that person? over time, I guess. Even if you didn't find him attractive, like you didn't have those crazy butterflies and sparks flying.
Yeah, so your question is if you don't have an immediate attraction or it's not related to physical attraction, is that something that can develop over time?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that there are a couple of answers to this. I think that attraction is a weird thing that doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes attraction can be related to the way that somebody looks physically, but
Mm-hmm.
there could be other things that can create really powerful feelings of attraction that are not
Yes.
necessarily something that you can see. I mean, if, supposedly, Queen Cleopatra, who, drove men to madness because they were so
Mm-hmm.
obsessed with her, was not the most beautiful woman. There were like other things about her that were
Hmm.
quite intoxicating. Yeah. So I think that that can be part of it. And I think that there can be qualities that people have that are more related to like their character, being a
Mm-hmm.
genuinely good person. Like, wow, I really admire you. I appreciate you. You're a lovely human. I feel close to you. But that is a different thing than sexual attraction.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that you can have a lot of an attachment bond to someone,
Mm-hmm.
may or may not have the sexual attraction part. So that's oftentimes what is happening in people who have affairs. They really do love their spouse and love their life and love their family and all their things and are very devoted to them in their own way. But the connection that they have with them is not sexual in nature, and there's still a part of them that craves and wants that thing. It's
So
two different tracks.
it,
So, oh, go ahead.
is sexual attraction something instantaneous, or is it again, it's based on our I've got not chemistry, our interactions, our how we feel with each other, or is it just
Yeah,
like, okay, this is I'm attracted to you and that's it? Like
right. I,
how
I,
biology wise?
I think it can be a little bit of a both and,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that um, a relationship that feels more like what many people, by the way, would characterize as true love,
Mm-hmm.
devotion, attachment, connection, appreciation. I think that there can be sexual elements that can be developed over time, particularly if you have positive sexual experiences with that person. You can
Mm-hmm.
kind of like train your body to respond to them in that way. But um, that like animal attraction, like chemistry, sexuality feeling is kind of its own thing. And that usually happens fast. And this even goes back to the beginning of the conversation. So, like many times in a rebound relationship, or I mean, honestly, for a lot of women in general, they are drawn to this. And sometimes at the expense of a very nice man who would be loving and generous
Yes.
and kind and decent and honest and loyal and all the things, not understanding that it's two different things. And so it has nothing, I mean, sometimes it's low self-esteem, but it's almost like this moth to a flame. Like people crave
Yes.
that sexuality, and that's where they get into trouble. So I think maybe a different story is that it is also okay to have a beautiful relationship that can certainly have some sexual pleasure, but
Mm-hmm.
that is never actually going to be that like hype, like really
Mm-hmm.
intense type of
Mm-hmm.
connection that you might have with somebody who doesn't have a lot of these qualities, by the way.
But I would think that
Mhm.
eventually that connection wears off. Like it lasts, what, 18, 36 months, and eventually even that high sexual
Mhm.
attraction
Yes,
eventually goes away because the
exactly.
novelty is gone.
Right.
So now
And
you
it can
have a
feel
piece
quite
of junk
hollow.
here.
Right, right. Yeah, and so that's the big difference. And I think, it surprises people to think about it. But I mean, maybe very rarely there is all of the good things and then also
Yes.
that element of sexuality, but that's more rare.
Yes. What I'm learning, and now when people first, when it comes to dating apps, I think for me, I do not find them work at all because
Mhm.
I need to experience the person. I need to
Yes,
interact to see
right.
how I feel you. Because a lot of times people show me, what do you think about him? Like, oh, I can put you in touch with this guy. And I am very apprehensive of saying he is handsome, cute, or not, because first, pictures can be very deceiving, bad
Yeah.
angle, whatever. But also, when you interact, it's a very different experience. You may
Yeah.
feel sexual attraction, not the crazy one, but
Uh-huh.
enough sexual attraction when you are talking to him
Hmm.
because of how you feel around him. Because I think women are sexual attracted to men that we feel safe with. As we grow. I think before it's just the animal instinct, but as we
Hmm.
grow, I think we become more sexual attracted to people that we feel safe with and taken care of.
Mm.
Is it right assumption or am I did I heal too much?
No, I think that's very individual. I think certainly that can be true. And
Hmm.
I think that for other women, a guy that they feel very like safe and comfortable with, that is never going to ignite that like,
Agree.
super intense. Yeah, it's just they're different things.
If it's there, it's there. If it's not, it's not. So that's kind of, but
Yeah,
what I think a lot of women should be apprehensive about judging somebody by the cover alone without
totally.
experiencing and not even giving it a chance, but understanding what you feel with them and just cutting it off. Because you may be cutting off somebody who is truly good for you. You're just
Hmm.
stubborn,
Yeah,
or too judgmental.
right. That can certainly be true. Yeah.
So to wrap it up,
Hmm.
what is the one piece of advice you would give to women to be successful in post-divorce life, like successful in terms of relationship wise,
Hmm.
happy in their own skin? I know it's a loaded question. but
Yeah. Yeah,
what,
I mean, well, and I think it looks different for everyone, but the big piece of advice is to slow down and
hmm
work through an organized process. Just turn over all the rocks, the stages of healing, what is there, and treat it like a year where you don't make any major life decisions if you can help it. Don't buy real estate, don't get a
hmm
tattoo, and don't get into a new relationship until you have some time to think through some of the questions that you and I have been
hmm
talking about today. And also just to get like comfortable with yourself again. Because, another thing about coming out of a crappy marriage is that it is very distracting. When we are unhappy in a relationship, it's
hmm
all we can think about, right? It's very consuming and it's a lot of noise. And so, simply to have a relationship with yourself for a little while, you do not need to be happy by yourself. I think that that is also crap, but to just be like, cautious. I'm not going to believe everything I think right now. I'm not going to believe
hmm
everything I feel right now. But also, you know what? If you want to go have some sort of intense sexual encounter with some person just because it feels good, whatever, but just like understand that that's a thing and
hmm
be suspicious of it. Like your radar is kind of mixed up right now. Your signals are scrambled. So take
hmm
some time. Yeah, get yourself organized, figure out what you want, and also like, yeah, don't believe everything you feel.
Yes, and that's the biggest. I agree. You need
Mhm.
time for yourself, especially going through
Yeah,
divorce. You're in such a vulnerable state. You
totally.
are emotionally a mess.
Yeah.
Regardless of how you feel about the ex, you are grieving loss of family. You are now reestablishing, if you have kids, how to be a single parent. You're
Hmm.
trying to figure out how to live your life on your own. Like somebody was able to fix a sink, and now you have to figure out how to do it on your own. There are so many changes. And if you add that additional layer, I agree, it's very hard to make good decisions
Yeah.
when you are confused. And you are
Yeah.
certainly confused when you are going through divorce,
Right.
regardless of how smart you are. It's just, it's innate. There's too much going on.
Yeah.
And so, yes, if you can help it, be still. I think being still,
Be
that's the
still.
word.
That's such a beautiful way to say it.
Well, Dr. Lisa, thank you so much for being here. I love the breaking down
Oh,
of biological understanding of the chemistry as
oh,
well of our emotions and why we do things.
right.
Uh, and hopefully we can help ourselves not to do them going forward. But we're humans and that's what we do. We just
Yeah.
experiment and try, right?
I know it. But I appreciate the conversation and it really is a lot to like wrap your head around because
Yes.
it's a different way of thinking. And so I will offer if your listeners would like to do a deeper dive. So the book is Exaholics Breaking Addiction to an Ex-Love. And then on my website, growingself.com, I have a lot of free resources for people who are trying to figure this out. I have a quiz, How Over Your Breakup Are You, that will give people some visibility into their stage of healing and like what do they need to do next to keep going down that path. We talked about the first stage, but there are actually a number of others, and people
Hmm.
can get stuck in any one of those stages. And then I also have a ton of podcasts and articles. So growingself.com, if you go to the divorce and breakup recovery section, you'll find all of it. There's a podcast playlist with all kinds of different episodes. There's a link to the quiz. You can get more information about the book. And I know that you're doing this as well, but if it would be helpful to talk to a therapist who
Mhm.
specializes in heartbreak recovery, we do that as well.
I
Yeah.
think not that many therapists specialize on heartbreak, so I think
They
it's
do
a very
not.
needed resource for people who go
That
through divorce because it's inevitable, unfortunately.
Right. Well, you know what? Just very briefly, this is super
Hmm.
important, and I wish I'd thought to mention this earlier. Many people, when they're going through this type of thing, they do show up in therapy because they believe that a therapist would be prepared to help them. And what people don't know is that therapists are actually not trained at all in relationship loss, heartbreak recovery, navigating divorce. I mean, I am a marriage and family therapist, learned nothing in any of my training about these things. And that really surprises people because
Hmm.
therapists, honestly, they're trained to diagnose and treat clinical mental health conditions. And the process that we've been talking about today is not that. And I'm not bashing therapists or therapy. I mean, there's a place for it. But typically, when people engage with a therapist who doesn't have specialized training in this, a therapist will do what they know how to do, which is like processing, grieving, and that is
Hmm.
one tiny part of this. And that in itself will often get people stuck. People can be in therapy for years and years and like just sort
Yes.
of, yeah, going around and around the same thing. So I am so glad that you brought that up. And it's very important to connect with a therapist who has specialized training around heartbreak recovery and relationship loss.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, listeners, now you know you're experiencing heartbreak. You can go to growingself.com and find resources to help you manage and self-soothe. Let's put it that
Yes,
way. Or
definitely.
you have resources to reach out to Dr. Lisa and be a part of
Yeah.
the group, how to heal from the heartbreak. And thank you again for being here. And
It was such a delight. And I really enjoyed our conversation. And thank you. I could understand why your show is so popular and your listeners love you so much because of the way that you are so open and relatable about sharing your experience. But I think in doing so, normalizing it for other people and then giving
mhm,
them the opportunity to understand like how do I handle this? Because it's really
mhm.
confusing. So thank you.
It is. Yes. And thank you everybody for listening to Uncoupled and Unfiltered. Until next time.
That's it for this episode of Uncoupled and Unfiltered. If you're loving the raw truth and practical takeaways, do the badass thing and rate and review the show wherever you listen. It helps more good people find their way out of the chaos. And check the show notes. Yeah, we actually put some useful stuff in there. Resources, links, tools, go grab what you need. Until next time, don't settle, don't shrink, and don't look back.